On the Rocks is the first film produced by Apple and A24 since their partnership just 2 years ago. And it is of course directed and written by the decorated Sofia Coppola. It stars Rashida Jones and Bill Murray as a father and daughter duo working together to figure out whether or not the husband is cheating. It's a beautifully shot film with a really concise premise. It's sweet and well acted. In this video, I'll be talking about the plot of the film and breaking down the relationships between the characters, as well as breaking down the themes of the movie itself. So you have been warned, there will be spoilers ahead for Sofia Coppola's On the Rocks. Laura, played by Rashida Jones, and Dean, played by Marlon Wayans, are a married couple raising their 2 daughters in New York City, and they're definitely well off living in a spacious Soho apartment. Laura is a writer and Dean is running a company. It's not really clear what type of company he's running. It's most likely something to do with technology or something along the lines of media and entertainment, because the number of Instagram followers he has is of real importance for some reason. He's busy securing accounts, he's busy getting data analytics, he's busy getting all these insights and a bunch more corporate buzzwords, and he's often stuck working late or traveling for business. While Laura, being a writer, remains in the city taking care of the kids while trying to make sure she can finish writing her book before the imminent deadline approaches. But with quite a bit on her plate and on her mind, she's suffering from serious writer's block. The central through line of this film is Laura's concern with Dean potentially cheating on her. And it's not that she's being overly insecure or irrational. There definitely were plausible instances that led to her suspicions. So it's definitely not unreasonable for her to be feeling this way. And it's this constant doubt and this constant questioning of her relationship, which definitely seemed to be stable and comfortable, that pushes this movie forward. So let's quickly break down the events that sowed these seeds of doubt in Laura's mind. Number 1. Early in the film, there's one night where Dean arrives home, just having gotten off his flight from London all the way back to New York, and he collapses on the bed next to a sleeping Laura. He then starts to snuggle up to her, waking her up, and she's happy to see him, and she says hi in that really cute coupley way. Dean then suddenly stops affectionately nudging her and recoils. And he responds with a confused "oh," and then another hi, before just collapsing asleep next to her. And Laura interprets this as Dean, once realizing that it was Laura he was talking to and snuggling up to, suddenly being turned off and somewhat repulsed. The second instance is the next morning where Laura finds another lady's toiletries bag within Dean's luggage. And you can tell it's not hers because she's looking at it as if she's never seen it before, and it's a toiletries bag with a bunch of love hearts on it. So without saying a single thing, you can see her heart breaking as she looks at it. And she's like putting 2 and 2 together and sort of realizing what's potentially happening. And when she asks Dean about it, Dean has a reasonable excuse. He says that one of his female colleagues, she couldn't put that toiletries bag in her hand carry, so he just stuffed it into his luggage and he was going to return it to her the next day. But obviously, in Laura's eyes, things are starting to look a little bit sus. The third instance is that later that same night, when Laura attends one of Dean's work events and meets Dean's accounts manager, Fiona, a fairly bubbly personality who Laura can't quite muster the energy to have a proper conversation with. And while at that party, Laura can't help but just focus on Fiona and Dean and seeing their relationship, physical touching and laughing and congratulating each other, clearly getting along well, but she's clearly looking at them through this lens of the potential that they've been sneaking off behind her back. And honestly, at this point, the damage has already been done. And all Laura can think about is, who did Dean think he was talking to when he came home that night? Why did he react with such disappointment and suddenly become so disinterested? Is this Fiona lady that's getting along with him so well the woman that he's cheating on her with? There's all these questions just bubbling through her mind and sending her on this downward spiral. So what does Laura do next? She sort of accidentally, but not really, tells her father about the problem and sort of seeks his insight as to what she should do or whether he thinks Dean is actually cheating on her. And her father, Felix, is played by Bill Murray, and he's more than excited to help her dig up the truth. And this is because he's an expert in infidelity himself, as he had an affair and left Laura's mother back when Laura was a child, so he clearly is best suited for this job.
Here's the plaza. This is the place to have an affair. It has the most exits.
Exits on 3 streets.
And Felix is quite the character. He's 76 and he's very much stuck in his womanizing ways. He's extremely smooth talking and apparently very knowledgeable, chatting up every person he sees, in particular women. And he has a charm and charisma about him that makes him the life of every party, and makes it seem so effortless as he just glides through life without a care. But as cool as he seems, he's also just as equally repulsive, with his constant need to be the center of attention and his constant power moving of everyone around him, sort of demeaning other people to sort of put himself up and hold himself in a bit of a more superior position. And by doing that, he's seduced a lot of women, and he's actually at the same time doing that to his daughter and making her put him on a bit of a pedestal. And you can see this with his interactions with Laura. He constantly calls her kid, and it's just a perfect summary of his character. On one hand, calling her kid is sort of endearing and nice, but at the same time, it's also sort of demeaning. I mean, she's an independent woman, she's got her own kids, she's got her own family, and her dad's still treating her like a child. And he constantly talks about the evolutionary explanations for why men prefer women of a certain age, of a certain size, of a certain shape of ass.
Sure, it's nature. Males are forced to fight, to dominate, and to impregnate all females.
He's always got some rationale or reasons as to his actions. He's sort of justifying his misogynistic behavior. So what does Felix do to help Laura? Felix, he gets his contacts in London to follow up on Dean's bookings to see if anything suspicious was going on. He then drags Laura out on a stakeout to follow Dean as he goes for a night out with his colleagues. And this involves an exciting little dash through the New York streets in a small Italian convertible. And the cherry on top is when he drags Laura all the way to Mexico to follow Dean as he goes on a business trip. But when we really boil down Felix's true intentions in helping Laura uncover the truth, we come to the realization that Felix is actually jealous of Dean. He just can't fathom that Dean wouldn't cheat on Laura, because Dean's a man and all men cheat. It's within their nature. Because Felix, he himself cheated, he couldn't help himself, and so all other men must have that urge at least, and most other men can't suppress it. And just at this slightest hint, Felix is instantly convinced that Dean is just the exact same as him. And it's clear that Felix finds it very hard to accept that Dean is actually just a good man. So the heart of the film isn't actually about Dean's potential infidelity. It's actually about Felix's past infidelity and the way that he treated his wife and his children and how it's impacted on Laura to this day. He subconsciously realizes that his behavior in the past has most definitely negatively impacted on Laura in the way that he brazenly cheated on her mother in front of them and left their family and just continued girl after girl after girl, never really being a healthy support system for his family, and of course failing completely to be a supportive father figure. Laura even mentions that if he stayed with Holly, the woman he left Laura's mother for, it would have been a bit more bearable, as it would have meant that he was just finding someone else, someone better suited for him. But the fact that he just continued to move from woman to woman, it crushed her soul and it made her feel inadequate. And it comes to light when they're in Mexico that Holly has recently passed away. And it's not explicitly said whether or not this was the catalyst for Felix reaching out to Laura and wanting to be more invested in her life, but I think it's a very interesting insight into his current psyche. Potentially her death made him realize and begin to regret the way he's lived his life up to this point, and the way he's treated those around him. He realizes that by acting that way, and by doing all of those things, he set his daughter up for failure. He's provided himself as an example of what every man is like, and he's almost certain that he's doomed her to marry someone just like himself. And now he's just looking for an excuse to be more a part of Laura's life, and to now be that constant and stable male figure that he should have been all those years ago, and that now in his mind, Dean isn't. The resolution of the movie is that there was no funny business going on at all between Dean and Fiona or Dean and any other woman, and that all the things that Laura was fixated on were genuinely justifiable, and her paranoia was only amplified because of her father. And the final scene shows Laura replacing the watch gifted to her by Felix, his old watch that held this sentimental value, with a brand new Cartier watch from Dean. Symbolic of how she no longer holds onto her father as what a real man looks like, and now can genuinely look towards Dean as that supportive figure. I definitely really enjoyed this film. Murray and Jones worked really well together as a duo, and Murray does an amazing job at charming you and at the same time absolutely grossing you out. It's a movie with a very tight plot and a real focus on the father-daughter relationship, as well as a beautiful exploration throughout New York City, through this romantic lens of Bill Murray's character. The set and the costume design was so thorough, it really added another layer of realism onto the characters. And overall, this movie is just a beautiful, well-acted film. But the 90-minute runtime did leave it feeling like there was a bit more to give, and that they could have dug just a little bit deeper. A lot of the intricacies in the father-daughter relationship aren't quite resolved or really expressed by the end of the film. There's more just a quiet acknowledgement of what's happened. And I think I would have liked to see a bit more of a dramatic shift in either one of the characters from the beginning to the end of the film. I think seeing that growth and that change would have been really nice as well. But ultimately, I do think this film is definitely worth a watch. It's just a nice, quick movie. It's got nice comedic tones as well as exploring these deep familial issues. Thank you guys for watching this video. Be sure to hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe to Cloudy TV for more content from me. Let me know what you thought of On the Rocks and let me know whether or not you thought Bill Murray's character of Felix was charming or disgusting. As always, thank you guys again for watching and I'll catch you all next time.